Good evening, everyone. We thank you all for joining us again this evening. Welcome to our family survival segment, our second that we are having, and we are just so blessed to have this opportunity to come before you on behalf of the Seaboard Missionary Baptist Associations, where our moderator is Reverend Dr. Carl Johnson, and our women's president is Sister Ophelia Morrison. And I serve as the Young People's Directress, and I'm Cecilia Pittman. And tonight's segment, we're going to focus on our young adults, as we all know them as the millennials. And tonight we're going to have some very interesting topics and discussion on the impact as they discuss in the areas that we have prepared them for to focus on in this society. They're becoming from it from a spiritual aspect as well as from an educational aspect. The topics focusing around voting, community thoughts, politics. Our theme tonight, though, we're focusing with to who do we go? And to bring the points of discussion and thoughts to you tonight in four areas, dealing with our faith area, we have none other than Reverend Al Jackson Jr., who is the pastor of the Greater New Macedonia Missionary Baptist Church in Miami, Florida, as well as he serves as our host. Yay, give him a hand clap. From our social aspect, we have attorney Ruby Lenora Green, who serves as Assistant Public Defender in Broward County, and we're pleased to have her with us as well. And from the community activist side of it, we have Sister Aiyana Edwards. She is the founder of Black Talk with ACE, which of course stands for her initials. And we're so proud of her for what she's doing in our community. And from our dialogue aspect with our millennials, none other than the minister Reginald Woods, who is a young adult, young youth pastor who serves in many areas, known throughout for his dialogue as to he's able to articulate and share many viewpoints with us. So we want to just focus tonight on those areas. The main, as we know, we have voting coming up very soon. We have, of course, in Broward County, the final days of registration coming up, July the 20th. And we just want to make sure you saw the date. The date said November the 4th, but of course, our general election is November the 3rd. But the key point that was with that is we always hear about things the day after. So we don't want to wait for November the 4th and say what we could have done, should have done, would have done. We want to look at what we can do right now beforehand, before we wake up that morning and see how everything has affected in the voting, our city, our district, our state, as well as from our governmental side. So with that, I'm turning it over to our host this evening, none other than the Reverend Al Jackson Jr.
Thank you, Sister Pittman, and I appreciate the opportunity in which you've set through Seaboard and Young People's Department for us to have a conversation and dialogue that I believe is absolutely needed and necessary in the time and climate in which we're in now. We want to stop before we get into our discussion tonight and before we get into the topics in which has been set before us. We want to first of all give honor to our moderator, Dr. Carl Johnson, and his cabinet and his leadership, and to our women's president, Sister Ophelia Morrison, to our layman's president, Mr. the Deacon Henry Saylor, who is on watching us today as well, and he gave us a shout out, as well as again our president of our Young People's Department, Sister Cecilia Pittman, and to all of the Seaboard staff. Pastor Caldwell, Sister Ollie Turner, Sister Sharon Davis, to everybody, Brother Holman, everyone that's a part of our Seaboard family. We're excited because this is a topic and an issue that we're dealing with today that is so needed because of where we see our country is struggling and wrestling with. All across the country, we're seeing how individuals are hurting and they are seemingly confused and don't know which way to go. And so the question now becomes, where is the church? Where is the association? Where is the religious organizations in which claim to be followers of Jesus Christ? And I'm glad that the answer today is that Seaboard is right here. The church is right here. The association is right here to dive into these issues and not run away from them, but rather attack them and address them. And who better than to have some of the brightest minds in which we have in our South Florida area who have come today and set aside their time to share with us about their thoughts, their convictions, their ideas, their strategies in which we can possibly employ for God's glory and for humanity's gain. So we're looking forward to the discussion tonight, because we know that faith and citizenship, Christianity and citizenship, go hand in hand. And we're looking forward to this discussion. I want to start now by I know that Sister Pittman has already given us a kind of a snapshot of all the panelists in which we have today. But I want to ask them to give just a brief story, a brief introduction of themselves, and talk about their story and how they got to where they are. Let's start off with Minister Woods.
Hey, I'm Minister Woods, live in the South Florida area, Miami area. I do have a nonprofit organization called Millennials in Ministry. It is geared towards getting millennials back into the church. And we deal with a lot of issues outside of that, but that is mostly what we're geared towards doing. I work with millennials as well as youth pretty much all day, every day. So it's my passion that I have, and I'm glad to be here with you all today.
Great. Then let's Miss Edwards, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your story.
Good evening, everyone. I am Aiyana C. Edwards. I am a second-year student at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, with a major in political science, a minor in African diaspora studies on a pre-law track. I also am the founder, hostess, and CEO of Black Talk with Ace, which is a social media platform and digital platform that aims to speak on issues that is prevalent in the Black community, but specifically issues that need to be talked about within the Black youth. And the way I became engaged and civically engaged and politically engaged is from my experiences attending Dillard High School in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I experienced and I also witnessed a lot of issues within the Black community that I felt as if needs to be addressed. Therefore, in my career, I plan to be a civil rights attorney and subsequently be a U.S. senator.
Wow, you actually sound like you. I know you go to Spelman, but sound like you went to Cookman. But I'm, but that is absolutely impressive. Then also,
my mom attended Cookman, so I'm a Wildcat by heart.
Listen, I'll take it. I'll take it. You are good with me. But then we also have Miss Ruby Green with us as well. Miss Ruby, tell us your story.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, that was wonderful. My name is Ruby Lenora Green. I am from Pompano Beach, Florida. I grew up in the church, dancing and singing in the choir. I actually still do dance liturgically. And currently, I'm an assistant public defender in the career criminal unit at the Broward County Public Defender's Office. I'm one of 15 siblings and the only one to graduate and go to college. I'm a mother of an amazing 13, soon to be 14-year-old. And I've been working in public service, and there are several things that happened to me in my life that led me to public service. I was a mute in school starting out. I was very shy, and people basically told me that I wasn't going to be able to read, and I stuttered, and then I ended up winning a school spelling bee. And by the second grade, I was actually the sole document signer in the household because my mom couldn't read or write. She had to leave school early when she was young in order to pick beans, cottons, and strawberries in the fields. By 13, I was sold for drugs. by 16, I was told that I wasn't going to be anything in life. And, even though I was running track and even though I was playing flag football and volunteering, despite that, I still thought that for the rest of my life, I was going to be working at McDonald's. And there are things that happen in our lives that, are designed to break us, but we just need to know that we need to have faith. I graduated from college within 3 out of the 4 years, then went on to law school, graduated law school early as well within 2 out of the 3 years. In 2015, I was Legacy Miami's top 40 under 40 leaders of today and tomorrow. I'm the first Black president of the Broward Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. And I actually became chief of county court by the age of 28 at the Broward County Public Defender's Office. It's important to give back. We need to understand that we need to help others open more doors and, so that people can realize that they can achieve their goals in life as well.
Wow, that's amazing. That leaves me speechless. That's amazing. As everyone can see, we have a powerful panel today, and I'm excited about it. And so before we even get started with the questions and the topics of discussion, I want everybody to do me a favor. I want you to do me a couple of things. Number one, I need you to make sure that you I need you to make sure that you share this video. I need you to make sure that you let everybody know, hey, listen, log on to this discussion, because everybody needs to hear what we're talking about. And then as well, I need you to make sure that you log on to facebook.com/Seaboard Baptist for Seaboard's Facebook page. We want to make sure you like that page as we are building Seaboard's social media platform, and we definitely want to make sure that you are a part of that. If you have any questions, write it in the comment section. We can see all the comments over here, and so if you have any questions, any comments, anything you want to add to discussion, we don't want it just to be a monologue. We want it to be a dialogue. So we need you to make sure that you say, listen, I got a question, and we'll make sure that we'll address it and we'll answer it to the best of our ability. With that being said, hey everybody, let's go ahead and let's start the discussion. Let's talk about it. So I want to start off with this. We know exactly, you don't have to go very far. Even if you've been living under a rock, you still know that this country is very much so unstable, right? We have so many different fires in several different ways. For millennials, how can young adults, how can even young people, even children that are younger than young adult age, how can the young generation affect change in a society that seemingly is disconnected, in a society that seems to be discombobulated, and it's just so many voices out there, so much noise going on? How can young people within the church involve themselves or input their voice, amplify their voice to make a difference in this society? I wanted to get your thoughts on that. How can we as a young generation affect real change in this community or in our country in which we see today? Anybody can jump in first.
Okay, I'll start. So I believe that the first answer to that question is you have to find passion. I believe that passion is something that gears an individual to do whatever they want to accomplish, whatever they aspire to do. So the first thing is we need to find passion, and we need to find out what specifically do we want to see change in. And that's the individual thing that each individual and each young person has to do. And once an individual is able to identify whatever it is that they're passionate about, you can then start to formulate coalitions and formulate groups and formulate big, massive groups of people that have the same goals and have the same aspirations for the world. And that's something that I want to focus on, and I'm going to continue to focus on with the Black youth in my community, and specifically the Black youth within the church. We need to become unified. I believe that that is one of the main reasons why we have not seen what we could have accomplished in the last few years, because we aren't unified enough. So the first thing is, I believe that we need to find our individual passions, and then we need to somehow formulate a way where we can all be unified in that. And with that, we'll be able to spark change and promote change.
So I love that answer, and I want to kind of press that point and ask the question, because you brought up something very very key. It's not just about you using your voice, but voices are stronger when they're all saying the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we were all just yelling and all just saying random stuff, then it would be confusion, it'd be mess, and it would be exactly what we're seeing now. But if we all had a unified voice with a unified statement, and saying the same thing, then that message would echo throughout the community and country and even the world. So this is my question. What, in your opinions, should be the issues, the topics, the passions that this generation should grasp and adopt and embrace to be able to have that unified statement? What issues, what statements, what movements do you think that we should all collectively work together on?
I think I think the first thing that we need to do is go back in the past and use the African terminology of Sankofa, which means to go back and get. And when you presented that question, the first thing that I thought about was organizations like the NAACP. You know, those organizations that were formulated based off of obtaining civil rights for Black people and minorities. So I think that it's as easy as seeking membership in organizations whose main mission is to empower and uplift the Black community. And then to answer your other questions regarding what topics should we find passions in and what topics should we solely be fighting for, it's literally everything that makes up our daily lives. It is the medical field. It is the industrial field. I'm a political science major, so I'm definitely going to say it's voting and civic engagement. It's religion, it's spirituality, it's mental health. It's everything that makes up our daily lives that we need to start placing ourselves in. And like I said, in order to form a coalition where it's different subcategories, however, we're focusing on the same thing, which is empowering and uplifting the Black community. And another thing that I am also passionate about, that I do feel as if is one of the main things that we need to start refocusing our vision on, is education. We need to instill African American as well as African diasporic history within our children. We cannot allow this system to teach our children something that belongs to us. So holistically, we need to start pinpointing each and everything that makes up our daily lives.
Yeah. Ms. Green, I saw you wanted to jump in on this.
That was a wonderful answer. When I think about, because I'm in it, the criminal justice system, and everything that Aiyana said is most definitely true. When we think about the criminal justice system, and everything that's happening now is what we needed to be doing. And we need to be unified, right? Because the criminal justice system serves as a mechanism that has historically left our neighborhoods under-resourced and our people over-criminalized. And it has left traumatic effects from education to healthcare to the prison, the school to prison pipeline. And that is what we need to focus on. We as a people also need to stop telling our kids that they're too young, right? We need to make sure that they're getting out there and they're doing things, because the Bible says, let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity, right? So we need to be ready for every good work. And that's what the Bible says. We can do all things through Christ that strengthens us. And that's what we need to instill that into our youth and into the people that we know today, because it's not happening. You know, we felt defeated for a very long time. And what is impossible for man is possible for God. And the enemy can't stop what God is going to do in your life. He just tries to get you to doubt what he's going to do and get you off a course. But you need to stay your course, right? You need to stand up and walk in your victory. And that's what we need to teach people to do.
Talk, Reverend Ruby. All right. I'm telling you. I'm trying to figure out if you're an attorney or a preacher. I'm trying to figure out. Man.
Listen, I grew up in the church. I know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Minister Woods, you want to weigh in on this?
I agree with what both of the young ladies said. But with that, I also think that with that comes, we're known as the microwave generation. We're known as a generation that wants everything right now. So when the unity does come, when after a week or so, we get tired and we no longer want to go out and protest and fight the good fight that we've been fighting for. I think we have got to stop being unified for just a week and be unified until the situation is resolved. We have definitely, I mean, whatever situation we're facing at that time, we've got to stop being the microwave generation. Go back to George Floyd. We were protesting. We were doing everything for a week. Now, how often do you see the protests happening? They're not happening. Yet police brutality is still happening every single day. We've got to, I am strong on the unity, but I also think we've got to stop being the microwave generation, and we've got to keep fighting the good fight because it has not stopped. Our grandparents did it up until the time they passed, and we've got to be that generation of long term who's willing to keep fighting until we have that particular situation resolved.
So I want to ask a question on that because, you know, this year, many people have said, I've heard several commentators talk about how everything that's happening is just kind of like the perfect storm. It's just like the right amount of ingredients with COVID and Trump and George Floyd and internet and all this stuff that has just kind of been the right amount of ingredients to form this radical social demonstration in which we've seen. And we've seen so many protests and so many demonstrations. We've seen riots as well, and we've seen peaceful protests, and really we've seen more peaceful protests than riots, although the media oftentimes focuses just on that. But we've seen this call for major change, right? But my question is, and with it has been primarily or in a large part led and driven by young adults, by people who were not alive during the civil rights era, right? Those that were not born, when, before the Voting Rights Act, was passed. So my question would be, now, are we seeing a decrease in activity or in the fight? Have people become kind of tired because they've gone so hard before, and now, they're kind of, just kind of starting to settle back down, or are things still simmering according to what you've seen? And then what should it be? Should we continue? Should we kind of slow down? Should we ramp it up? What are your thoughts?
I think we should continue because what the young ladies were saying about continuing our education and telling us things. I have a good friend from the convention, Mark McDuffie, and his father is I don't know if you guys know about the McDuffie riots. I'm not from South Florida. I had no idea about the McDuffie riots until it happened, and then he told me about it. But that goes into play with the young ladies were talking about our education. We have to continue this because we're taught the big systems and we're taught what happens on a national level. But what was happening in our own backyard that we didn't know? That was Florida. I'm from Florida. This is a different part of Florida. So I think that we've got to continue. We've got to ramp things up to another level, because how they look at it is when something happens, give them a month, they'll calm down. Get them 2 weeks, they'll calm down. They'll be back to normal in 2, 3, and that's exactly what happens. In a week or two, we're back to normal like nothing ever happened. So I do think that we have got to keep at least some kind of consistency across the board when it comes to these issues.
I think from my observations, what I've observed from the beginning of this new movement following George Floyd's murder, I think that right now we're in a place of discourse, we're in a place of discussion, because I've seen multiple, and when I say multiple, I mean a plethora of discussions talking about, civil rights, talking about the social justice issues that are affecting the Black community. So what I think what's happening right now in this segment of this movement is that we're having a discussion. And I know you asked, well, what's next? How do we progress? How do we continue to advocate for what we want? And the next thing is we need to start seeing things put in legislation. And being a political science major, it's something that, I make sure that I focus on, and I make sure that I try to observe and pinpoint when I see these big corporations, giving this and changing their name and doing this and doing that. And I'm completely grateful for all the symbolic demonstrations that have been painted on the streets of America. However, just having Black Lives Matter isn't going to change the fact that there's a school to prison pipeline system. Having Black Lives Matter, in the streets of DC, is it going to change the fact that, Black men are being extremely criminalized in our criminal justice system? It's not going to change the fact that Black women are dying at extremely higher rates than any other race. So what I think needs to happen now is all this discourse that we're having, we need to now start seeing that in our legislation. And how do we get that? We need to vote for those people who have Black people on the agenda and on their agendas as well.
Right. Great. So you mentioned voting, and that's where I kind of want to segue into, because voting is absolutely important. Number one, from a historical standpoint, in which our grandparents, and this is not something that happened 100 years ago. We're talking about something that happened within the lifetime of our grandparents and definitely our great grandparents, that they fought for our right to vote. And fought for our right to be represented. And so now we are hearing rhetoric from many of our peers of why they don't vote, and why they don't give their voice to the electoral process. So is voting, of course, we have voting suppression, and we have, people that talk about, there's, our votes not being counted. People are taking our votes and throwing them away, and they're only going to elect who they want to elect in there. So is voting still efficient? Is voting still important? Or should we look for other ways to make change within our country and communities?
No, voting is definitely important, and we need to make sure that people understand why it's important and what the people before us fought and died for, right? So when it comes to voting, I know a lot of people, like I said before, they feel defeated, right? They see that we have a pillar of the community that we put up, and then everybody's talking about them. Everybody has so much more momentum for this person, like Andrew Gillum. And then he loses, right? But they also have to understand that there is something called voter suppression, and we help that. We help that fluctuate through our communities, and we don't know it. People pay for our votes. So if we have people out in the streets that say, "Hey, I can't even afford to, feed my kids," and then somebody comes up to them with $100 and says, "Give me 100. I'll give you $100 for your ballot, for your vote." That hurts us. And it's rampant in our communities. And I see it every single day, because I just started running for public defender. This is my first time running, and I'm seeing all the situations and issues in Broward County that is happening now. Like situations where Black people are not for their own people, only because they need resources that we cannot provide for them. But a white person with, hundreds and thousands of dollars can.
So, Ruby, I want to ask you specifically this question. How important, this is a two-part question. Number one, how important is it that, and I know you're running for public defendant, how important is it to see people that look like us in these elected positions? And then the second question is, should we vote for just everybody who looks like us in certain positions?
Okay, so I'm a go there. No, we can't vote for everybody that looks like us, because everybody that looks like us, all skin folk ain't skin folk. Okay,
Right.
it's a problem. Okay, we need to make sure that we have the qualified ones, and know, and we need to be able to flush out the ones that are unqualified and the ones that are going to harm us. But when it comes to situations of having people that look like us and why it's important, diversity is so important. When it comes to the criminal justice system, it's important for us to have judges that look like us. When we have witnesses that take the stand and says someone shot the door 3 times, that don't mean they actually shot it with a gun. It means that they closed the door. We need people that understand that that's what that means, right? We need people that work in the public defender's office that look like us, because they understand what we go through. Not that we're trying to instill sympathy from everybody. That's not what we're trying to do. But they need to understand that, not everybody grew up with a silver spoon in their mouth. I come from where the people in which I represent come from. So I know the issues that we have. And because you didn't grow up in that same situation, the problem is that you're just going to look over it and you're not going to understand. So we need people to understand where we're coming from. When we have prosecutors that look like us, they're able to sit there and get the mitigation, because a lot of people don't understand that prosecutors are the most powerful being in the courtrooms, because they can waive minimum mandatories. The judges can't waive minimum mandatories. They're bound by statute to enforce a certain minimum mandatory. We just got 2 cases in our office just this past month for people getting charged with burglary dwellings for taking mangoes from trees, which is insane. That's mandatory 15 years in Florida State Prison. But if you have someone that come from where we come from, where we love mangoes, hey, mango season in May through June, and we know this. And we as kids used to go around to everybody's trees taking mangoes off their trees. Can you imagine going to prison for something like that? But if you have someone that's where you're from and you understand that this is a situation, and sometimes kids are hungry and, mitigation purposes, we need to have people like that. It's just an understanding standpoint, not that we're trying to get sympathy, but you need to understand this. Not everybody comes from where you come from.
You said 15 years for mangoes?
Mandatory 15 years for a burglary dwelling. If you have a previous what we call prerequisite offenses, then that you can go to prison for a mandatory 15 years. Yeah.
And that's those are things that we don't know.
Yep.
And oftentimes, unfortunately, many of our people who have unfortunately gone through the criminal justice system oftentimes get a public defendant who does not look like us and does not care about us, and they will kind of just let us be just float on down the river without a paddle.
Yeah, just move on down the system. And the problem is that ignorance is not bliss. Okay, we need to be informed as a community, and that's what we need to also be doing. We as public defenders and as state attorneys, we need to go out there, judges, go out there and inform the community as to what's going on in our system, because we already know that the majority of the public defenders in the public defender's office are not Black. We have a box full of Black men, 95%. We go into the courtroom, the box is full of Black men, but less than 3% of Black men are working at our office, maybe 2%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. So the one of the things that I definitely want us to take away, in which Mr. Green has shared with us, and that just because they have the community's color does not mean they have the community connection, and doesn't mean they care about us. And so I want us to make sure that we have that. Ms. Edwards, you want to jump in on that?
Yes, and I know that Ms. Green said that all skinfolk they kinfolk, but another term that we can go for is a black face in a high place doesn't, necessarily want to advance the race. So I think in this discussion, I think that what we need to do is we need to look at the agendas that these candidates are running for, because like we all know and like we all have said already, we can't just solely vote for someone or support someone just because they look like us. We have to take into account the other factors that make up, a reason why this person should be in whatever position or office that they're running for. So I think the most important thing that we have to look at as constituents, as citizens, and as voters is we need to look at the agenda. We need to look at, if these candidates want to make changes that will benefit the Black community directly. I think what happens is we focus on the issues that the media presents to us, and that's where all votes go towards. But there is so many predominantly Black schools who do not have new textbooks. I went to predominantly Black schools, over 90% of Black students within the demographic realm. And there's so many resources that we just solely did not have. And I think that goes as far as to who was in office, who's putting the Black community first on their agenda. Mm-hmm. Who's making sure that Black students have what they need to? Who's making sure that, Black women have adequate health care? Who's making sure, who's looking at the immigrants that come from African descended countries? And that's something that we don't really talk about. We talk about immigrants that come from different races, but what about the Haitian immigrants? What about the Bahamian immigrants? What about the Jamaicans? So on and so forth. So I think that we cannot just focus on the skin color of a candidate, but we need to look at their agenda and see how effective their agenda will be with advancing the Black community.
So I want to kind of ask this question, and Minister Woods, you can kind of prepare yourself to give us your thoughts. So during this political season, and we want to definitely use this opportunity to encourage every young adult, every person that is 18 and older to prepare themselves to vote, and we want you all to get to the ballot. Get your absentee ballots if you need to, mail-in votes, whatever you need to do to be a part of this process. But during this election season, politicians come out of everywhere, making promises, saying all the right things that we want to hear, right? And they want to tell us that, we're going to focus on building the community. Everybody that has minimum wage goes up. We want to do this, we want to do that. And everybody shouts and says, hooray. But is there another way that we can kind of vet these candidates, how we can choose the right person more than just their campaign promises?
I definitely think we've got to do better with vetting. My first year of voting was that when Barack Obama became our president. I'm always excited to tell people that. But the thing about that was I knew nobody else on the ballot when I got there. I just knew I had to vote for Barack Obama because he looked like me. And that was out of my own ignorance, so to say. And then after that, I voted for everybody who came to my church and told me to vote for them. Because that is how it works. If we were in church right now, we would have politicians banging out the door trying to get into the church to get our votes for them, because they know the church holds that much power. The Black church does hold that much power. But we've got to vet these people. We've got to ask questions. And then when we ask these questions, we vet these people. We've got to start holding these people accountable. I tell people that all the time. We go to these restaurants. We go to Sundays. We go to the Lincoln. We go to Jackson's and all these other restaurants. And the minute they get our order wrong, we raising all kind of sand in these people restaurants. Why are we not doing this at these people offices when they're not fulfilling these promises that they promised us? When they told us that we'll have more finances for our community, we'll be building these new community centers so our kids have places to go. Why are we not beating down their doors when they're telling us that funds got redirected? No, we need those funds in our community. We need these things to be done in our community. We need our senior citizens to know they have a meal at home when they get home after their work. We need our veterans to know that there's somewhere for them to sleep at besides the street. They went to other countries and fought for us. We've got to start holding these people accountable to the promises that they've made to us. That same sin we raise in these restaurants and these stores, and the reasons why we use excuses that we use why we don't support Black businesses. We've got to have that same energy when it's come time to hold these politicians to their promises. We've got to vet them. If you know they've got a lying history and they've never done what they're supposed to do in the office beforehand, why are we putting them in the high office? We've got to start looking at these things. We've got to start looking at the background. Background doesn't lie. We say, well, I found Jesus and I no longer lie. If you lied before you found Jesus, you're probably gonna lie if you found Jesus and just use Jesus as an excuse to get out of that lie. But we've got to start looking at the background and looking at the history. History tells no story. So history tells a story. So we've got to start reading that story before we put these people in these bigger positions.
Ms. Green, I know you have to launch out soon. And so we want to make sure that we get your thoughts as much as we can before you have to leave. But tell me about your thoughts as far as when looking for young adults, looking for the right candidate to give their vote to and to sow. I like to say sow their vote because we're hoping that it's going to bring good fruit. What should they be looking for when they're looking to support a candidate at that ballot?
I'm going to have to agree. We need to make sure that we're looking to people's backgrounds, because backgrounds is what matters, right? We can't just go with the flow just because somebody says, oh, this person is it. We need to be able to, like what we say in court, when I'm actually making sure that I'm picking out the best jury from my client, I need to look at your body language. I need to know a little bit about your history just so I can get inside your head to see how you're going to think. I need to know exactly what it is that you've done to help us, because if you have nothing in your background that has done anything in relation to helping the Black community, volunteering, doing whatever it is by giving your time, then that's a problem. We need to know these things ahead of time. We can't just, go along just to get along. And that's the problem with our Black community. That's what we have been doing. And we need to be able to see what these people can do, especially when we have forums and stuff like that. Don't let them hide away with their cameras off and stuff like that. See if they can, speak eloquently, see if they can, do what it is that you need them to do. Because that's the problem. That has been a very big problem in our community by us just going along with what other people are saying about who is the best candidate. And it has been a major issue when it comes to us getting the help and the resources that we need. We haven't been able to do it.
Wow. That's awesome. I want to pause now because we want to make sure that everyone and about we're probably like in the last 15 minutes of the conversation, but we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to share or to ask their questions to this very informed and inspiring panel. So we want to make sure that if you have any questions, write it down in the comment section and let us know what those questions are so we can answer them to the best of our abilities. But we do have a question that we have from our phone line. So I want to add President Pittman to come in and share with us the question in which has been posed to this panel.
Thank you so much, Reverend Jackson. We're going to ask the first person who presented a question from our conference line. If you could just go ahead now.
Sorry, Bernadette.
Brief in your question. And okay, and we're ready. Go ahead. Okay, are you, let's see, Brother Stewart, are you there?
Did we lose him?
Brother, okay, are you there? Okay, we're gonna.
I see them talking, but I can't hear
from
you.
The conference call line.
Hi, Sister Pittman. He's not there, but if I could kind of transcribe what he was trying to say. He was saying as a poll worker, as a lot of people, African American, that actually their affiliation is the nonpartisan, and when they do that, they're actually hurting themselves, like in the primaries, and also voting for certain things because they're limiting themselves only to the nonpartisan group.
That's a sister. Okay.
Okay. So go ahead. You want to add to that, Edwards?
Yes. So what I was going to say is that is something that is not only, prevalent in the Black community, but that's everywhere. But that is something that we definitely have to make sure that we inform our community about. A lot of young people, a lot of first-time voters are NPA. I was specifically NPA because when I was registered to vote, I was 16 and I did it through my high school's organization who, helped, the population of students, Black students, become registered to vote. And the reason why is because no one can tell you, to affiliate yourself with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. So what happens is, and especially with first-time voters, is that NPA shows up on their voter registration. So it is imperative that we, make sure that we educate anyone who may be voting for the first time that they need to log on, and it doesn't matter which county they're in, but you can go to Broward County Supervisors of Elections if you're in Broward County or whatever county you're in, and to make sure that you just update your voter registration online and make sure that you are affiliating yourself with whatever party you want to vote for, because what happens is you're going to get a provisional ballot, and once you get that, you are coming in, making sure that you're voting for this party. And once you get a provisional ballot, whatever is on there is whatever is going to be on there. So we have to make sure that we are informing our community to make sure that their voter registration is up to date. So when they get to the polls, they are able to vote for whoever they desire to vote for.
We also have to understand that you're not always going to be able to vote for whoever it is that you want to vote for, because let's face it, Florida is a closed primary state. So just right now, if you're MPA and you have somebody who you really want to go for, like all of our constitutional offices, they're not nonpartisan. They're not, so you have to pick a side. If you're going to do Republican or you're going to do Democrat. And if you don't pick a side, then you're letting all those votes go that we could have when it comes to voting for the constitutional offices. And the constitutional offices are important. And we have the state attorney up, we have the supervisor of elections up, we have the public defender up, we have the clerk of courts up. All of these people, basically have situations where they're putting in place things that can affect us in our communities. So that's what, when we think about constitutional offices, we need to think about, oh my goodness, I need to pay attention to this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do we have another question, Sister Pittman?
Do we have another question coming from the conference call line? Okay, Reverend Jackson, we're going back to you, sir.
Okay, got it. Great. So that is absolutely important. So I want to ask a controversial question. All right. So we're talking about NPA. We're talking about Democrats. Talk about Republicans. The Black community over the past few years has been largely deemed as a Republican or Democratic community. Should any African American young adult align themselves with the Democratic Party because that's what auntie and grandma and pawpaw was or are, or do they have the right or the freedom to align themselves with whatever party they feel aligns with their views? What's your take on that? Because there's a lot of times in the community in which those that are not Democratic or not from Democratic Party, they are considered to be the enemy. And then there are others that are on the other side of that as well. So tell me your thoughts on that.
I truly believe that it is that you can do whatever it is that you feel that you should be able to do. Okay. So if you want to vote for somebody else that's not in a particular party, you should be able to do that. However, we have to think about what affects one individually affects us all collectively. All right. So when it comes to certain issues, such as, let's say, even the presidential race that's coming up, right? So we need to make sure that we have the best person in place, and it's only going to happen by votes. So the more votes that we get, the better chance that we have at beating 45 out.
Right.
But everybody also has to understand that when it comes to the primary election, we're voting for a person or whatnot. We can vote for that person even if we are a Democrat or whatever. We want to vote. Everybody wants to get together as Democrats and vote for the same person. But when it comes to the general election November, you can go ahead and sway off and do what it is that you want to do. You can vote for anybody. You can vote for a libertarian. You can vote for a non-party affiliate candidate. You can vote for a Republican, or you can vote for that Democrat that you voted for, that whoever won the primary race. But the problem is, collectively, what's going to happen? So you also have to think about that. The majority, you're going to have to think about that. And I know it sounds crazy, but this is the times that we're living in. We're living in the times where when people are voting, what is going to affect us is whether or not we're going to vote Democrat or whether or not we're going to vote Republican, because those are the major two parties.
Right. Absolutely. Ms. Woods, you want to add to that?
I totally agree with the young lady. Said I am a registered Democrat. However, I don't always vote Democrat. I've lived long enough to know how to do background and to check and see who lines up with mostly of what I agree with. And I believe that goes back to what we talked about previously about doing your background and checking to see, because just because they're within our party lines don't mean they agree with everything that we agree with. Sometimes politicians switch party lines to get our votes, and we've got to be careful with these things. We've got to monitor these things. We got to watch it, and we got the background check on these things. Like I say, I don't always vote within my party line. I can honestly say that. But we've got to check these people out, and I think goes back to what we talked about a little earlier. Checking these people out and making sure just because they're Democratic and you're a Democrat don't mean anything when it comes sometimes to when it comes down to voting, because they may not agree with nothing you say. They may just be Democrat because grandma made them be a Democrat 30 years ago. So you've got to check these things out. Yeah. Right.
Great. So as we're wrapping up, Ms. Edwards, I want you to be prepared to answer this, because this is an important election. This season is, there's a lot riding on this. And I'm not just talking about the presidential election. I'm talking about some congressmen and women. I'm talking about some state representatives, mayors, especially Miami-Dade County is voting for a mayor, commissioners, and in my opinion, even the dog catcher, if that's an important race too. Public defendants and all that. So a lot of people don't know that the last day to register, I believe it is July 20th. I believe that's the last day to register, and that's in 5 days, right? So what would you say to the young adult who is 18 or up, or matter of fact, maybe 17 and up? They may be 18 by the time the election day comes, and they can participate. They can register now and be ready for when they turn 18. What would you say to that young adult, to that young person who is on the fence, who has not registered yet, but needs that encouragement to get out and vote? What would you say to them?
Well, what I would say is, to that young person, I would ask, or that young adult rather, how much do you care about advancing your community? And what I mean by that is, we talked about earlier how, following George Floyd's murder, we went from protesting and now we're in a sense of discourse and discussion. But like I said, the most effective way to get change is through legislation. So the question is, how effective do you want to be as a citizen of Florida, a citizen of South Florida, a citizen of the United States? So what I would say is the most effective way to do that in these last 5 days before voting registration closes is to go online. We're always on our phone, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, but we have to take time in order to exercise our rights. So what I would say is, whatever county you're living in, whether you're in Palm Beach, Broward, or Miami-Dade County, go online to your supervisors of elections website and register to vote. And it is not too late to seek out candidates, because even for me, just scrolling on Facebook, I've checked into so many panels where Broward County's seats and officials, whoever's running, have literally been on a panel just like we are right now. And you can hear, I know earlier Miss Ruby talked about body language and how people respond, and listening to someone on a digital platform literally shows us the way these people react and respond to questions that they probably have not seen before. So what I would say to this person is to make sure that they have their own beliefs and rights aligned, and to also make sure that they understand that your one vote can literally change whatever the outcome may be. So I think it becomes a sense of importance, and it becomes a sense of how effective do you want to be as a Black person in the community. And again, like I said, it's not too late. It's definitely not too late.
Yeah.
So there's a question, and Ruby, you may be able to answer this. I have a question. Miss Paulette, who is a part of our Seaboard Association, and she asked the question of, is there a dummy site that can help me understand these amendments? The vernacular at times can be confusing. So, for those that they're not just people that need to be voted on this year. There are also some policies that oftentimes we're not talking about that needs to be addressed. So, is there a way that we can figure out what exactly does this mean? Does anybody have any insight on that, Ms. Ruby, or anybody?
This is the thing about when it comes to those amendments. She's not the only person confused. They're meant to be confusing. A lot of times, if we look back at 2018, we saw a lot of amendments that were coupled with each other. One we may not have agreed with, and one that we may have agreed with. And so it's meant to be that way. There's no complete understanding as to, or where we can actually go to it, have a site and say, hey, can you explain it or whatever? Sometimes they have it. If you look it up on whatever the amendment is going to be, you can look it up on Google or something like that. But there's no absolute place that you're going to go to and be able to say, hey, they're explaining this and I understand every single thing. It's not meant to be that way. The only other way is to go to your legislature and state reps and say, hey, yeah, these are the bills that were proposed. Can you help explain it to me? You can do that. I would suggest that you all do have constant contact with your state reps, because they're the ones that are up there representing us. And the things I would say to people right now, just as that's just as what was said before, is that Ms. Edwards said, we need to make sure that people know that it's not too late. It's not too late to register to vote. We have an opportunity to make history in Miami-Dade, okay, and in Broward County. And people don't understand that. We need to make sure that we have our vote counts, because our lives depend on it. And down here in Broward County, we had the same prosecutor for over 40 years. And do you know that Broward County leads the state and the nation with the most wrongful convictions?
Wow.
Broward County is number one in the state too, which makes us number one in the nation. So we have an opportunity to make history. Even in my race, we've never even had a woman, let alone a Black person for these positions. We need to understand and make change. And the only way to do that is to have people understand that your life is on the line. And that's how we need to tell them. We need to tell them your life is on the line.
Great. That's awesome. Listen, we're at an hour now. We're at 58 minutes, and we want to get ready to land the plane. But before we do so, I just want to ask for last words from our panel, and then we'll bring in President Pittman for her last words as well. But Ms.
Ruby Green, please give us your final thoughts tonight.
Oh, it was such a blessing to be here. I totally appreciated Mrs. Pittman for inviting me. All the panelists were amazing. I like this is what needs to happen. We all need to come together and get together and do things just like this, so that people can see that there are other people, like-minded people out there, and that we know what we're talking about, and we lived it. And
Right.
so get out the vote, everyone. Please go out, vote. August 18th is the primary here in Broward County, and November 3rd. Please get out and vote, okay? So it's important that we realize that, and for a change, because we can have as many panelists as we can. We can have as many forums as we can. But until you realize how important it is that people died in order to be able to do what you have the right to do right now.
Right.
And people are still asking for their rights to vote. We just had Amendment 4 and the governor just appealed it. And people were just so close they could taste it. And it was just taken away just like that. So we need to be careful of the rights that we have right now. And it's not even just a right, because some people only have it as a privilege that can be taken away.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Ms. Green. Ms. Edwards, any final thoughts?
Yes, I just wanted to give a special thank you to Pastor Jackson as well as Sister Pittman for allowing me this opportunity to utilize my platform in order to empower and uplift, the Black church and the Black community. And just like Miss Ruby Green said, we need to make sure that we go out and vote, because our one vote could affect an entire election. And this is what they are essentially counting on us to do. They're counting on us to protest. They're counting on us to have these discussions, but they're not expecting us to show up at the polls. So what we need to do is we need to show ourselves, and we need to show ourselves accordingly. And we need to make sure that we are exercising those votes that our forefathers, fought so hard and died for. So again, I want to thank everyone that tuned in. Thank you to the Seaboard Association. And also I'm going to ask that if you do have an Instagram or even a Facebook account, if you could follow Black Talk with Ace. That is my personal digital platform where I utilize my voice, my activism, and my advocacy in order to empower and uplift the Black community. So again, thank you all so much for this opportunity, and God bless.
That's awesome. And we're proud of you, lady. You're doing a great job. And thank you for your time. Minister Woods, any final thoughts?
I was there. First off, I want to thank you all for having me again. I do appreciate it. Being on these platforms, they're very beneficial, not only to the people who's listening, but to us as well. I also want to say, don't let no one discourage you from voting. I don't know if y'all seen the meme on Facebook where it say my Facebook is stuck between my ratchet friends back home and my college students. My Facebook is stuck between my hood friends back home, college classmates that I went to college with, and Christians from church. And so I see it all every day. And I see people from my hometown every single day say, why do we vote? Nothing's going to change. Please don't get that mindset. Please, that is not a mindset to have. Your vote matters. Your vote counts. Talk to your grandparents. Talk to your great-grandparents who didn't have that opportunity to freely go out and vote without being hurt or harm brought to them. And you'll realize that this is not only a choice, but this is something that we're required to do because we're doing what our ancestors could not do. So we've got to get out and we've got to vote. Your vote matters. Don't let no one tell you anything different. Use your voice. That pen and those bubbles are your voice during that time. Use them. It can be very, very beneficial to our communities and to you as well.
Great. Now we do have one more question that snuck in, and this is the absolute last question. But this is for Miss Green, and we want to make sure that we honor this one. This last one. It says, I have a question for Ms. Green. What about ex-felons? Do they have any voting rights, especially our Blacks?
Some of them do. So, and I'm actually having an amendment for discussion on July 23rd with the League of Women Voters for the West Side Regional Library. But if I go through this, it'll be too long. But I'm going to just say simply, some do if they've completed their sentence. and all of their fines and fees are paid as of this moment. It was Judge Hinkle had basically submitted an order saying that, it's a poll tax. Nobody doesn't need to be able to have their fines and fees are paid. Are you kidding me? Most of the majority of the people who are ex-felons are indigent, so they didn't have the money for the fines or fees. So this is a poll tax. You're just it's another tactic for voter suppression. So that's basically what he said. And then the governor, of course, appealed that. And so now we're all on hold. So if there are no fines or fees and you have restitution, then no, you cannot vote.
And that's an issue that we need to restore our felons' right to vote, and we ought to be dogged on if you allow it to take it away. We've been suppressing our vote for not just a few years. This has been for generations, and we definitely have to make sure that we fight. Listen, everybody, July 20th, the last day to register. Please register to vote. If you know anybody that's not registered to vote and they're eligible, let them know that they need to register. They need to register. I'm talking to all grandparents and great grandparents and nieces and aunties and uncles, that you got nieces and nephews, grandchildren and children that need to vote. Tell them you're not going to make them no more sweet potato pie until they register. All right. Let them know that they are cut off. All right. Everybody needs to register. And then after you register, educate yourself. Then after you educate yourself, then go out and vote. All right. Let's bring up our leader, our president of the Young People's Department, Miss Cecilia Pittman.
Hey, all I can say is to God be the glory. I know that this platform tonight, because we are virtual, if you will, there's a social aspect that, again, we do want to focus on, that this is from a spiritual as well as a social aspect. We just thank God for everything that has been done and said tonight. Seaboard's theme is learning from the past, leading for the future. And I think that everyone that has been listening to this panel tonight, or either viewing them via Facebook Live, that I think we all can say that we are in good hands. We are in very good hands as to the future. Don't believe the hype when you hear about our young adults and our young people. I'm just an advocate for them. And I think most everybody knows now. Whatever you need done, let's find a young adult. We always identify them in the age bracket of 18 to 35. So I want everyone to know that all of these persons that are sitting on this panel are under the age of 35. I won't have them tell their age, but they're under the age of 35. So we're in good hands. Reggie, you 30. We know that. I'm not gonna, and Reverend Jackson is a pastor. He's a pastor of one of the greatest churches there is, that has a long history.
That's right.
Reverend Jackson, how old are you? I'm sorry, I'm just gonna tell it. How old are you?
I'm old enough to have 2 kids, and man, and I feel older by the minute.
Yeah, but he's in his 30s. Let's put it right there, okay?
For now, yeah.
And Sister Green, she's right there as well. And then we know Sister Aiyana, she's there. Look, you see the 2 women. I didn't ask them to tell their age, because that's something you don't do. But we're in good hands. And from what you heard tonight, I just pray we all believe that. The scripture that's referenced also tonight with our theme of to who do we go, the theme references that what is in your heart, okay, will come out of your mouth, and it will show as well. And it is so, I won't say irony, but it was just profound that when Sister Green was speaking, as well as Aiyana, that's something they focused on, of how you say things and the body language, if you will. There's so many things. And let me tell you, if no one else doesn't know it, they always say, of course, from a child, but our young adults as well, they notice a lot of things that we don't. So let's keep in mind that we are in good hands. I thank them for everything that they have offered tonight, from a political as well as a social aspect. Just keep in mind that we need to be aware of what is going on in our cities, our district, again, our state, our governmental. There's, some dates that are very important. Again, that July 20th. Not only just registering, but if you need to have your address changed, your political party, it's got to happen by Monday. So again, we just need you to be very aware of that. We're starting, that's that first date, but the last date is going to be that November the 3rd. Then we're going to be looking at November the 4th. And again, we don't want to hear would have, should have, could have. It's too late then. So it kind of goes up the ladder all the way from all of the different parties or positions that they have spoken of tonight. So again, I just want to thank Seaboard. Thank you to Florida General. Thank you to this great panel. Thank you, Sister Green. Thank you, Sister Aiyana. Thank you, Minister Woods. And a special, I have to, because he played dual role. Thank you, Reverend Jackson, panelists as well. But thank you for being our host. We do thank our moderator, Moderator Johnson, for allowing this to take place, as well as our women's president of Seaboard, Sister Ophelia Morrison, for allowing this to take place. I know last time I had just a few comments, but I am so just pleased tonight to just sit and be in the presence of these young adults, of listening to them. I can put young adults up against certain people any day. And I just thank God that we are blessed to have our young adults, being able to do that. They are educated, they have spiritual aspect. So I am proud. I am just very proud, very proud. And this is across the state. We're not just dealing with Seaboard, we're just saying across the state. So thank you all so much again for everything that you have shared. And Reverend Jackson, I'll leave it back in your hands to do our final.
All right, we're going to pray out, everybody. And again, remember to vote on definitely November 3rd, which is my birthday. So you can use that as my birthday gift. And just make sure that you have more than one gift. So the first gift is to vote. The second gift, you can mail it to me. And I appreciate that. All right. But everybody, thank you again. Ms. Edwards, Mr. Woods, Ms. Green, Ms. Pittman, thank you all so much.
Bless you. Bless
and
all
for
of you.
everybody that's commented, that's liked, that shared, that asked questions. Thank you all so much for being a part of this discussion. Make sure that you follow the facebook.com/Seaboard Baptist. Make sure that you log on and follow us in our association. And thank you again, Pastor Johnson, and to all of our leaders that gave us your support. Let's pray. God, we thank you, Lord, for this time of discussion, this time, God, of social activity, social activism, and as well as spiritual wisdom. I pray, God, that you'll bless us, Lord, as we move forward, as we continue, God, to learn from our past, God, while we lead and lean, Lord, towards the future. God, we pray that you'll bless each and every one of us. I pray, God, for Miss Edwards. I pray, God, that you continue to bless, Lord, her and her platform, God, and the things in which she's doing, and the moves, Lord, that she's making to better our community. I pray, God, for Miss Green. I pray, God, that you'll expand her coast, open up doors for her, God, allow her, God, to be the representative for our communities in which she's been ordained to be. Give her favor, Lord, in the name of Jesus. And I pray, God, for Minister Woods. I pray, God, that you'll continue, God, to bless him in an awesome way, God. I pray that you'll expand his ministry. I pray, God, that you'll keep him faithful, God. I pray, Lord, that you allow him, God, to see your favor, God, just resting upon his life, and keep him in good health. And bless, Lord, our leader now. Bless Sister Pittman, and God, in her heart, Lord, for this, and our heart, God, for young people, God, and for the building of your kingdom. I pray, God, that everything she's poured out, that you'll pour back into her. I pray, God, that you'll bless her in the city and in the field. Bless her family, God, and every aspect of her. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Good night, y'all.
Good night. Thank you all. Woo. Thank you.
Wait, Aiyana, can you give what's your Facebook group?
It's Black Talk with Ace. So Black Talk with ACE.
I
And
think
it's on Instagram and Facebook.
didn't we give you a scholarship for National Council of Negro Women?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
this girl here, you.
Yes.
Look at that.
Yes,
Money
ma'am.
going good to you.
This
Thank you. Thank
is
you.
amazing. Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be in
Yes.
contact
I'm
with
so
you. I
proud
just
of
sent
all
you a
of you.
friend
I'm
request
just
because
so
you're
proud.
pursuing the career that I want to go in. So I already sent you a friend request. So I will definitely be in contact with you.
You do it. It's all
Yes.
over.
Now.
You can seek us out.
Good. All right, y'all. Church is over, y'all.
Thank you. Okay,
All right.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
All right, y'all. See you.
Good night.
Okay, I'll be in contact, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.